Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and today we're talking about Department of Truth number one. So, I mentioned earlier that I picked up a few indie books for the course of September and October because someone was asking me to talk a little bit more about Image. We'd been kind of going off the grid to review more lesser known companies and indie books for a while, so I think people were wondering what I think about some recent indie titles, or I should say Image titles, which I guess are indie comics. And I happened to pick up this book, Department of Truth, not really knowing anything about it, but I saw James Tinian wrote it, and that was pretty much good enough for me. It looked like a weird conspiracy kind of book, but I really had no idea what I was in for. This was fantastic. And we've talked a little bit about indie books, especially in how they start a series and their first issue. I found, like, compare this to, say, something like Seven Secrets, and this is such a solid start to something that leaves me wanting to read more of this series and look for these issues as they come out. There's so much cool. Well, okay, I should say this book's like almost tailor made written for me. It just has some really interesting stuff because personally, like, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I have like some of that behavior and the psychology behind it is kind of interesting, and some of the conspiracies themselves can be interesting, but that's not really like my personal cup of tea. So I was a little skeptical about that stuff, but that's not really what this book is about per se. And the idea behind it and what it's about is so damn cool and very much up my alley. I'll kind of get into why I'm particularly excited about it when we get into the spoilers of this book. But for now, I'll just say, like, as a book for me, this was really, really strong. Thanks for joining us, Karsten. Always glad to have you on stream, or like on in chat while I stream. But so I was also going to say Martin Simmons does the artwork, so coloring, and this like very stroke heavy, almost surreal artwork, very vivid in its design. Right now we're seeing a much more clear cut cover, but in a minute it'll flip to the book proper, or the main cover, which I think kind of better shows the artwork. It's all very obscure. There's lots of, you can't see a lot of eyes and stuff like that. It fits in with the tone. And there's like the book proper. Um, so it's very surreal and kind of goes in a different direction. Let me center myself a bit there. I've changed the camera angle again, I guess. It's just me moving around the monitor day to day, I guess, but whatever. Um, and I like the artwork. It implies horror in a certain way. The general plot that Tinian sets up. Like, I was thinking about this book the other day, just and some of its implications. It has me spiraling out in terms of, oh, what this story could mean and where things could go from here. So, let's start from the beginning. We open on November 22nd, 1963. Um, and a man is being held by the FBI. And if you know, Carson says, right now I'm working on a deer picture, but this is much nicer. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but okay. Do you mean like a movie? Anyhow, and they talk about like the man being interviewed. If you know that date or anything like that, this is Lee Harvey Oswald, and these agents are talking to him. I guess they aren't. I shouldn't say FBI. He's being held by police at first, and these mysterious agents come in. They ask if Lee knows what just happened, and he does, and he says, like, this will change the world, and oh, I see. Carson's talking about the artwork. Yeah, it's really cool looking artwork, even in this like simple scene where these guys are just talking, um, and they ask if Oswald understands what just happens, and he says he does, but they say, okay, you need to understand it. You need to know, we need to make sure that you know the truth. So you have to say it. And he says, up is down and down is up. Then we begin chapter 1, the end of the world. And I do want to show off, like, this is the kind of artwork I'm talking about here. You got this nice spread out panel, or spread page of just DC, and it just looks so cool. It's like the National Mall, White House, and the Washington Monument, but like just drawn in a really interesting way. The sky's got all this like black smattering to it. There's a certain dirty sense to everything, and that's because there's a certain ugliness to it. So now we're in the present day, and a man's being driven by this agent who's dressed like the other agents from before. He says that he saw something that he shouldn't have, or he doesn't really understand what's happening. He thinks he's losing his mind. He thinks he's remembering things wrong. And he gets led into some sort of government building and meets up with an older gentleman who asks him to explain what happened to him. And the dude is a teacher at Quantico, and he studies memes online. So the old guy's like, you study funny pictures on the internet. Like, that's how you got involved in all of this. It's because of funny pictures on the internet. And the guy's like, well, yes. He specifically follows memes spread around right-wing, conspiracy nets. So it's not explicitly stated, but like Q and stuff like that. He follows the spread of that activity, how these people are affected, and it gradually led him to those flat earthers. So I think that's pretty cool. We're talking all about very real stuff here, but like really pretty timely and like on brand. And so he ends up like getting into all this stuff, and he goes to a conference of flat earth believers, this FBI agent. And he talks about his experience there and how they all seem to be like in on some hidden truth, it's just a strange little group. But at some point during the conference, he gets approached by this person, and they know who he is, that he's even an agent. And the agent takes him to like this penthouse suite where these two very wealthy gentlemen are like, oh, we love this conference. All these people that come, it was weird. They don't seem to believe it, and they seem above it all, but they seem to love having all these people come and talk about the flat Earth. And they're like, you believe it now, don't you? And the journalist talks about how they have like deathly breath and stuff like that, and there's this surreal moment where you just see these men's eyes and the guy's reflection of his glasses, and they look like monsters just laughing in his face. It's strange. And they take him to this group of people, all wealthy businessmen, and this very mysterious woman in white, who you just saw on the screen, or red, who you saw on the screen, who's watching it all, and she smiles at the journalist, and it like leaves this like unearthly feeling in the pit of his stomach. So she's an interesting character, and they put on this projector, and all these people are laughing and watching as the moon landing happens, but it's shown from a different camera angle, and you see a guy on the moon just holding a coffee cup. And so it's like, oh, they have footage of the moon landing being faked, but they're all just kind of laughing about it. And they talk about who these guys are, and they are basically very obvious proxies for like the Koch brothers. Like, they fund these weird corners of the internet and like try and influence government and all this stuff. And the guy looks and says like he's not sure if the video didn't seem like it was doctored or faked, and he has trouble making sense of it. So then these guys put him on a private plane, and he's like, well, I've never been on a private plane before, and I have no idea what to believe at this point. So he goes with them, and he flies and flies and flies. Doesn't know how long the flight was, but they stop to refuel a few times. It doesn't make sense, and they just keep going, like farther than they should be able to go. Like at a certain point, you should just be looping around the world, right? But no, they get to the edge of the world, and we get another spread page of this plane just flying up to the edge of space. And it's the biggest nightmarish thing. And they say, like, do you see it? And they're like, he starts panicking. And the woman in red is like, but you saw it, right? Like, it's important you see. And she pulls down these sunglasses she's wearing, and her eyes are just X'd out. I don't know if they were, like, it's meaning redacted, and this is what we're seeing as an audience, or if that's what he saw. It's like this, but he reacts to it and he starts puking and stuff to what he's seeing. And they're like, all right, we're gonna land and take a helicopter so you can get as like close and high as anyone has ever gotten. And as everyone gets out of the plane, one of the guys pulls out a gun and shoots everyone else that's flying on the plane other than this journalist guy. And he's like, you're Cole Turner, right? And that was actually the agent that was leading him to meet with the older gentleman at the beginning of this book. So we kind of have come around full circle. So she killed all these guys because apparently they're in on this flat earth truth. But then we cut to present day. So now the guy is kind of like, okay, now you're caught up to what I know. I guess you can kill me now. And the guy's like, well, we're not going to kill you. If we were going to kill you, like this woman Ruby would have done so back at the edge of the world. And they explain that they're poaching him to join the Department of Truth, a very secret organization. He explains, what you saw there, the end of the world, was a sliver of a different kind of truth taking hold. So here's the idea. The world is round. The moon landing happened. Kennedy was supposed to have been killed by somebody, or something. That is where this all started going wrong. So all these conspiracies, if enough people believe in them, they start to become real. And he refers to it as being tulpa space, this concept in Buddhism where, like, it's a thought form, a belief given a body. If enough people believe in something, it becomes real. I know this from Discworld, a series of fantasy books written by Terry Pratchett, where he based it off of the same concept and explored it in very cool ways. This idea that belief can shape reality, and in some ways does shape humans' reality. And as we get into these conspiracy theories, I think this series will explore that idea quite a bit. So, this guy continues explaining it, and he's like, so if enough people believe it, then all of a sudden the moon landing is a hoax. And every government, every airline, every communications corporation that grew out of the actual real space program, they would have been in on it all along. Even though that's not what would have happened, retroactively, things would change. So that's why the Department of Truth exists. They've been spending the last century fighting conspiracy theories to make sure they stay that way. And now this Cole Turner guy is joining the group. And he says, like, Ruby will get you sorted and get you to join. And he's like, I don't even know who you people are. And the older guy says, my name is Lee Harvey Oswald. Welcome to the Department of Truth. And that is how you start an indie series. Because I was just left really excited about this book. Because, yeah, like I said, I don't care much about conspiracies, but this take on it, where they evolve and respond to how people believe and become real, is very interesting. We've only touched on a couple of conspiracy theories, but think about the potential of that. And you have these well-funded guys working against that, wanting to spread lies throughout the world and creating this false belief system so that they can shape reality. Well, isn't that interesting? And isn't that, like, the message behind that, I feel, should be pretty obvious. It's like, well, in some ways, in our real world, like, humans believe these things, and to a degree they become true to them, and they will act accordingly, creating real-world political implications for their very fake beliefs. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be stepping on controversial toes here, but I don't believe in any of this crap. But when you look at like how these conspiracies form and how beliefs form and how the idea of having to fight someone's belief system, well, that has very implications across this series. And I'm curious about how far Tinian is willing to go with that and how much this gets explored. But, like, hot damn, this was a fun book. And, like, I was at the comic book store just yesterday, and I find myself checking the shelves to make sure that I am going to be reading more of these books. And we'll see, like, I'll try and carve out some time to review it, but I definitely liked what I got here. Rock solid, interesting, vivid artwork that really showed off the reveal and kind of got you going. That last page where we see the Department of Truth seal with Oswald holding a folder and standing solemnly in front of it says so much about this guy and what his life must have been like, because he seems to have been caught up in all of this and where like the truth is unclear. And that's where I was like, well, this book kind of makes it clear that like certain things are real, like the earth being round and orbiting a sun, but that reality is compromised. And I think the Kennedy assassination is so, because people don't know what to believe and it's so divided at this point, the truth of that is unclear and the reality of it exists in a certain flux. And it makes sense that Oswald is kind of at the center of this world of fighting conspiracy theories. It has interesting implications for religion that I don't know if this book is going to touch on, but I think they're kind of, this agency is beyond that, and they're specifically like, religion has existed for so long that whatever reality that exists in, they don't want to fight, but these conspiracies are a new and real threat to reality. So curious stuff. I really want to see where the rest of the series goes, and thoroughly enjoyed this book. Definitely recommend it. So we'll leave it at that. That's my indie review for the week or however long. I'm sure I got more coming in the pipeline at some point, and I probably will want to talk about that one more. This is, like, we've had some solid indie reviews, but out of what we've done this year so far, that's definitely the one that left me the most excited for the rest of the series. So yeah, totally awesome book. Definitely recommended. Next up, we're going to be catching up with a certain DC event called Death Metal, and I got a bunch of books to actually read for that, and some that I've already read that we got to catch up on. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.